Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, a podcast where we talk about the Constitution, politics, history, the culture, pretty much anything else I want to talk about. You can find this podcast on iTunes.com or iTunes, Stitcher, Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. I have so many there. It seems like every day there's a new one. AnnetteTalks.com, and I'm on Facebook at Facebook /Annette Talks, I believe. Anyway, and I'm excited today because we're going to be talking about some activism some folks in Utah are engaging in because they have all sorts of executive orders coming down and other actions taken by the governor there, which I can relate to because we have the same problem here in Colorado. And so joining me to talk about that is Elena Erickson. Hi, Elena.
Hello.
Thank you for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be back. I enjoy you.
I think some of my listeners remember you from when we had a discussion about masks, so we're kind of coming full circle because that was several months ago. You know, we are now in 6 months of this craziness because I took my kids to the dentist yesterday, and the last time we went, everything was perfectly normal. And this time when we went, they made us stand outside, ring a little doorbell. Someone came out, asked us 20 questions, took our temperature, made us put on, what do you call it? Hand sanitizer. I despise that stuff, by the way. And of course, had to have masks on. And so I was remembering, I thought, you know what? The last time I went to the dentist, which was 6 months ago, was the day that everything started shutting down because we left there. We went to the library. Literally, they closed it 5 minutes after we left, and it wasn't closing time. And then we went to Target, and they were literally just shutting down the cafe. It was like everything was closing on us on that day. And then, 6 months later, we're still in it. And so I know you and I talked about why we don't like masks, how they're not proven to work. And I thought by this time we would be well beyond where we're at. Like we should have, I thought we would be completely back to normal by now, and we're not.
I think most people thought that. And to me, I was a little skeptical of just assuming that, things will return to normal. For me, what really woke me up was COVID. It didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. Nothing sounded right. And I usually have a pretty good discernment. And so I knew something wasn't right. And several months ago, I made a post on Facebook that was why I believe social distancing is anti-Christian. Mm-hmm. And I still stand by that because by their fruits you shall know them. And we're seeing the fruits of this whole COVID thing. And so so for me, my political activism has been a measure to wake up. I feel like there's something that woke up in me that I recognize the mask for what it is. Somehow I recognize what's happening. And so I can't stand by. I can't stand by and do nothing. And I will say that while I have my fingers in a lot of different groups, I'm not really leading any one except for the notice of liability. And I can get into that later. But so I don't want to take the credit for a lot of activism because there are others who are so much more active than I am. But I'm doing what I feel is right and what is most useful.
Well, you know what? It's hard. I have this daily mental battle with myself on am I doing enough? Because I've had the same and backtracking a little bit. And you said that you're discerning about a lot of things. That kind of answers a question I've had in my mind lately, like why are so many women leading out? Well, I think women's intuition has played a really big part on us seeing or feeling, sensing that things are wrong. And so it doesn't sit well with us at all. I mean, when the thing first started happening, I had the same sense, like this is all wrong. Especially when California shut down, like I'll never forget sitting there on the edge of my bed, looking at my phone and seeing that California had just locked down. And it was like, my throat just dropped into my stomach. It was like, this is just wrong. And then to just watch all the other states, like dominoes doing the same thing, it's just felt wrong from the beginning. And so we get to this point where we're 6 months in, And it gets to a point where you feel like this is so completely absurd and wrong. I've got to do something, you know, and like my kids are now finding out they're going to go back to school full time next month. So about 3 weeks. And of course they're going to be expected to wear masks 5 days a week at school. And that it just burns me, right? And so I keep thinking, what should I be doing about this? And so, you know, I've been praying about it and pondering it because I want to do the right thing, and yet I don't want to waste a lot of mental emotion or energy. And so I've done several things like I've written emails to my governor, my county commissioners, my state senator, my state assemblyman, the school board, and I've had podcasts, and I'm signing a petition tomorrow. And so I'm racking my brain trying to think what can I do. We were supposed to have a rally here a few weeks ago, and then it got canceled. I don't know why, but it's like, how far do I go? I've been trying to go into places with no masks. You know, yesterday I went shopping, and I put it on to walk in because so I could get in, right? And then I basically had it down on my chin for the rest of the shopping trip as sort of an experiment. And this lady, I was walking, pushing my cart down an aisle, and this lady came at me with her cart, and I was like, what is going on? I was like, you know, quickly getting out of my way, and she says, mask. And I was like, I thought, is that really why she's coming at me? And I said, I've got one. And then she walks away and says, put it on. And I was just like, and you know, if she had stayed and confronted me, I think I probably would have ended up saying something like, Karen? Oh, I'm sorry, you look like a Karen. You know? I'm trying to find a way to...
I just have to say, the name Karen has severely dropped in popularity in 2020. I don't think we'll have any babies born with the name Karen.
I know, and I have a sister named Karen, and then I have a friend, and I feel sorry for all the real Karens. But, you know, and so I'm always trying to figure out how much time and effort should I be putting into fighting these things, you know, and we can't sit back. But on the other hand, I don't want it to consume me. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I know you're doing a lot, and you're highly vocal on Facebook, and you're out there in your community. And I've seen the pictures on Facebook, which I'm going to share some of those on in the show notes, because you guys are doing these rallies. And so I'm watching you because I'm curious to see what effect you're having, or if you're having any kind of making any difference, or if it's at least making you feel like you're doing something, because that counts for something, honestly. I felt better after emailing all those people and telling them it's not right that I have to choose between my kids going to school in masks or staying home and going online. That should not be a choice I have to make, but that's all I can see right now. I don't see any other way around it. So tell me what it's gone on in your state that's gotten you to jump in and start being active politically like this.
Well, I wanted to highlight a few main groups. So for listeners that are interested in the Utah area, and some of them have websites, so they hopefully will educate and inspire maybe other states. Defending Utah is one, and I'll talk more about them later. Utah Return to Schools Normal. This was one of the biggest groups that I got on early with. And I'm just going to keep people's names confidential. I did not start this group, but there ended up being over 5,000 parents. Now keep in mind, that is one household person represented. So that's not their spouse, that's not their parents, or whomever else that was also roped into this effort. And we sent thousands of emails, texts, phone calls, attended city council meetings. In fact, there was an experience in Provo where the Provo City Hall was full of parents protesting. Like, I mean, they came to sit in the meeting and they were peaceful. However, the board was so upset that they were there without masks that they dismissed the meeting and they refused to continue it and did not have a further notice. And this is starting to happen all over Utah.
So are they having secret meetings after that then? Are they not inviting the public at that point? Or?
I don't know. My county, Davis County, they only allowed 6 masked parents. Again, regardless if you have an exemption or a good reason you can't wear a mask, that supposedly Herbert outlined. And that's what I don't understand. He has it outlined that there are some exemptions for wearing a mask. People who are deaf, or people who who can't, like maybe who are handicapped or things like that. There are exemptions on there, but these public places are not cooperating with that. And that was part of his executive order. One of them was to have public buildings actually mandate masks. But anyway, so only 6 were allowed in Davis County. The sprinklers were turned on the rest of the parents. So around 200 parents waiting outside. The sprinklers were turned on them. Cache Valley would not even hold a meeting. Yeah, yeah. And Cache Valley would not even have a meeting. They would not even hear the parents. And so we have that going on.
What's the biggest beef that they're coming out? Is it masks?
What do you mean?
They're coming out to talk about masks on their kids. Is that the biggest complaint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so a lot of these are school board meetings or city council meetings. I'm
surprised they're even having those in person, honestly, because I've been going to the Douglas County Commissioner meetings, but they're all virtual, all of them. Yeah. And all I can do is, and they have answered my questions. You're allowed to type in a question, right, and submit it. This last one they didn't, because I was not on topic, because I just wanted to get it out there, and they didn't say it. But in the past, they'll read the question, but nobody here is doing any in-person meetings. I can't even imagine that happening.
Well, and we were notified. I listened in on Provo City. I'm not even in Provo, but somebody sent me a link. I was disgusted. I'm just going to be honest. Here's a warning. I might be kind of frank in this interview, but I was disgusted. It was mostly BYU students begging for masks because they're worried for their lives. And so I was firing comments left and right about natural law, the Constitution, we're going to hold you liable if it causes damage, all of these things. And we were notified at the end of the meeting that the council would not even look at the comments. So anyway, the callers.
I have to make a comment real quick on the BYU students. I have to wonder how many of them are doing this at the behest of their parents, or they've just been made afraid by their parents. Because I don't, the 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 19-year-olds, they're like the safest group, and younger kids are the safe. None of them are dying. They're not getting sick.
Well, here's what happens. So when you have a government, virtue signal an action. Okay, we have something that's never happened before in America, and even within our churches. Yeah. Where we say we've got to close down. Mm-hmm. When you have your churches say the same thing as your government, it adds some legitimacy to it. Yeah. And so people want to comply because there's got to be something to it. Right. And I think for 2 weeks, we were told 2 weeks. This is the good thing to do. Okay, we'll do it for 2 weeks. To me, I never supported it. I never thought it was right, but whatever. Quickly turned into 6 months, as we know. Mm-hmm. And I think what has happened to a lot of people, and I've heard this, and it drives me insane. They say, well, at least we can go out now with a mask. Mm-hmm. It's more important to keep businesses open and send kids to school. Mm-hmm. And I think, what country are you in? Mm-hmm. You are in America, where people died for your right to life, liberty, and happiness. And our U.S. Constitution says your conscience shall never be infringed upon. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to wear a mask, why, if your conscience is saying this is wrong, we are supposed to be protected in our U.S. and state constitution with that, what I'm going to call a spiritual belief. Mm-hmm. Because a spiritual belief or religious belief is what you value.
Right. So, well, you know what? There's a couple of things going on here. And first of all, I think that thing about we can go out now with the masks on, I think that springs from a lot of people that were scared to go out. Once they were told masks, it was almost like, oh, here's a pacifier for you, right? So they're like, okay, whew, I can go out now, I have a mask. So that became their safety blanket or their pacifier. And so it's like they feel like they made a deal. Like they feel like the two sides got together and agreed. Those of us that are like the lockdowns are stupid, and then the other side that's like the lockdowns are necessary. It's like they think we negotiated and reached this agreement that they would wear masks, or we would all wear masks and everything would be good. So they go out, they feel safe with them, and when they see us not wearing them, they feel like we've gone back on this agreement. Well, we never made that agreement. They just assumed that was, We've negotiated to that point. We've agreed to that. It was a compromise. That's the word I couldn't find. It's like they think that's a compromise that we've reached. And so why are we not willing to go along with this compromise? Well, we never agreed to that compromise. And so we're like, dude, no, I never said, none of us have ever been, I think most of us who feel this way have never been okay with masks, ever. Like day one, we were not okay with masks. But getting on to 6 months, we are beyond okay. And so to go off on a little side road here, because you and I talked about this before we started recording, now when I go out and when I see people with masks on, my subconscious says that's a symbol of repression. These people that are willing to put their masks on, these people that are willing to go to the store and call out other people who've got their mask down, that because they want that total compliance. So you've got one side that says, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way when they see a mask. I'm not the only one that feels that looks like a symbol of repression. And so I try and talk myself through, look, no, that's not what it is, but it feels like it. And so when I see people masked up and I feel that way, there's an automatic recoiling on my part. So if I feel that way, but the other side says, oh, this is an agreement we've reached and we're keeping each other safe, right? And it's a virtue signal. And so they see masks and they see good citizen, being safe, keep each other safe. If this keeps going, like, because I heard that Moscow, Idaho just extended their mandate until January 4th. So already we have people that are talking about, we've got to get through the winter. So if this thing continues on through the winter, and then we have the elections, and I don't see this ending well, because you're going to have people that are masked, not masked, looking at each other very distrustfully and disdainfully. That's not going to end well. So right. I don't have good feelings or a good prognosis for long-term with mask thing. So
no. And for me, I've always looked at it from the mental health perspective, because that's what I'm going into with my master's. And it's not just a physical component that we're at risk for. We're looking at the psychological effect, the spiritual, the emotional, the human connection, the relational. And so to me, when I see somebody in a mask, especially prior to COVID, it gave me the message, oh, that person is critically ill and they need their space from me.
Or they have
so I would distance myself.
Or whatever. Yeah, there's a reason behind it. Well, and the other thing is you cannot see their face. You can't see their mouth.
Right.
When that lady was coming at me and I was trying to get out of the way, I thought she was just, it didn't even occur to me there was a mask. I thought she was just trying to get where she was trying to get, and she didn't care if I was in the way. And so I was smiling at her, but I couldn't see her mouth. I couldn't tell that she was frowning, mad at me, coming at me. And so that's one of the big problems. And I am hearing impaired. And so I also can't read lips if someone's got a mask on. And so that's a big issue. There are so many issues with these things that it's just going to get worse before it gets better. And we don't understand the data, because we don't have people dying left and right.
No. For those of us who don't want the mask thing, we're pretty well acquainted with the numbers and the survival rate and the low hospital count. Without mentioning names, I know medical people, and they are in the hospitals. They're seeing what's happening, and this doesn't warrant the degree that we're having this reaction. And so I feel like there's two different worlds that people are coming from, and I'm trying, like you, I'm trying to understand the world of the fear.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of. And to me, life is worth living. It's not focusing on dying and death. It's worth living. And if I don't want to wear a mask, I'm sorry, they're face diapers. And I'm sorry if that offends somebody. But what is the purpose of a sanitary napkin or the purpose of a diaper? It is to absorb bodily waste.
Right.
And if we are being forced to wear our bodily waste and reconsume it, how is that not unconstitutional? And I was going to mention, you mentioned that you wanted me to touch on Herbert and the violations that he's caused. A lot of people say, how does this violate our liberty? Well, the First Amendment, the right to speech. Well, let me tell you, there are a lot of deaf people, like you just said. I have a nephew and his wife. I administered to 2 sisters who were deaf. I don't know sign language. They read my lips, and they read them very well. And so that is one aspect. We also have the freedom of religion. If we cannot go to church and worship freely, that's a problem. This isn't just about masks. There's a whole lot of problems. And so our Utah State Constitution says that our conscience shall never be infringed upon. There are several violations that our freedom of the free exercise of religion shall not be infringed upon. And it's being infringed upon. I'm sorry.
Heavily.
Once a month church is not acceptable. Yeah. And to have, okay, so Herbert, let's talk about his hypocrisy for a second. I don't know if you want to
let me back up for 1 second, because I want to point something out that people don't seem to realize, that just because something's not listed in the first 8 amendments doesn't mean that it's not covered by the Constitution. Let me draw your attention to Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So just because the founders didn't put the right to not put a mask on your face in the Constitution doesn't mean we don't have that right. It's heavily implied that we have the right to not stick something on our face and walk around with it, you know? And you could make the same argument about helmets and seatbelts, and those are all really good arguments. The bigger problem with masks is that they are so highly visible that in a free society, to have people walking around either complying or not complying, and you can see it immediately, is a huge, huge problem. And I don't know why people don't see that. That's a really big problem that if I'm going to walk into Target without a mask, I'm immediately going to be tagged as bad citizen, disobedient, not going along.
Well, let's take the argument further. If we were to tell mothers, do we mandate mothers have diapers or a specific brand, or that they can't have the choice of having a cloth diaper?
Yeah,
I mean, do we regulate hygiene in our society?
Right.
So to me, the mask thing, I fight it because it's a bigger issue. This is not about saving lives. We know that, we have the numbers.
No, we have 5 people hospitalized in Douglas County with COVID right now, out of 330,000. 5. This is not an emergency. This is not an emergency.
And let's back up. We don't even have our test. The test is under lawsuit. It was said it's not meant to diagnose. It picks up on RNA. When Utah State actually had to go and look through the sewage to find the virus.
Wow.
Do you realize viruses are the most abundant organism on the planet? Mm-hmm. So when you have a virus, we don't even know much about viruses. Viruses have never actually been proven to cause disease. They've never been proven.
Wow.
They are in the presence of the disease, but similarly to good bacteria. So what happens in our cell is when our bodies accumulate toxins and get to a point that they're toxic, they release exosomes, which is identical to a virus. So to say that a firefighter causes the fire just because he's present when there is a fire is the same argument for a virus. So here we are looking through sewage to try and pick up some kind of idea of a virus. Well, of course you're going to find a virus there.
Right. Interesting. So what has the governor done?
Okay, so all right, let me get to my long list of notes. Just kidding. I mean, there's a lot of things he's done, but basically he called parents irrational for wanting to protest. Okay, so what he did, this is really egregious. What he did was he gathered teens and had the TV news, the KSL TV news, interview these teens and say, our parents who are protesting are being ridiculous because at least we can go to the football team. So now he's teaching parents, this is Marxism. Now he's teaching parents they don't have the authority over their children, that what they're teaching their children is wrong.
That's completely divisive. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So he's also disconnected his phone line. Recently he,
what phone line? What is this about?
So it's the constituent phone line that you can call. He disconnected. I think there were so many calls of people repeatedly calling. And of course, several people emailed or called or texted. And there was always an automatic response of, yes, we'll get to you shortly, or blah, blah, blah. It didn't even address their concerns, of course. So just a fair warning, it's not really efficient at any level in the government. These groups that we've been working through, like I also mentioned, Take Action for Freedom. And I was involved with the Greg Hughes group. I helped with his campaign. But anyway, these groups and these like-minded people that as we've collaborated and worked together with this, we have found that at every office, it's better to call. Don't email, like call. Okay. We get more responses with that. But furthermore, Herbert called parents foolish and reckless for attending city council meetings. So that one I told you about where they closed it down, he called those parents foolish and reckless for coming in there. Cox, now Spencer Cox, he's the governor, right? He's the lieutenant governor, and he won the primary. People need to know about him.
Okay, if you don't know, wait, for those of us that aren't in Utah, Herbert is a lame duck governor right now?
Yeah, so Gary Herbert is our governor, and I don't even like to refer to him as the governor because he's not my governor.
I know we call ours King, or some more rude people call him Queen because he's gay. But, you know, Emperor, anything, he's a tyrant. They've become tyrants. People that, I mean, I would expected it from ours because he's a Democrat, but yours is Republican, right? And a member of the church, which is a big deal for us because traditionally members of the church, we revere our Constitution. We love our founders. We love the Declaration. We're big fans of natural rights. And so to see a governor who's both Republican and a member of the church to act like this is very disheartening.
It is. Well, and Spencer Cox is the same thing. And we know from Mitt Romney, he played the good old Mormon figure, member of the church, I should say member of the church. We're not supposed to say Mormon.
Reed, another prime example. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. I was in Nevada for a while. But anyway, Spencer Cox tweeted, I don't have the date, doesn't matter, but somebody could find it. He tweeted and he compared the mask to Jesus Christ to save lives. Okay, so he took that picture of Moses with the serpent and said, if we will just wear the mask, it was like the call to look at the serpent and live. Okay, so he did that. He said, wear the damn mask. Now, something else about Spencer Cox. Oh, okay, with the passing of Ginsburg, sorry.
Ginsburg.
Right. Ginsburg. Yeah. Ginsburg, with the passing of Ginsburg. Ginsburg. He said that he wants to be more like her, and she is a badass. Oh, I'm sorry for my language. I'm literally quoting this man.
I saw that. Well, when our governor called us selfish bastards, those are his words, selfish bastards for not wanting to wear the mask before. So he had to mandate that, you know, for our own good because we were selfish bastards for not.
Well, and evidently we're reckless and foolish. So we need a governor to help us in our lack of common sense.
I don't know how politicians get to that point where they're that stupid that they think that it's going to help them to denigrate their constituents. No.
And the reason that I really truly believe the reason Cox won the primary is because too many Utahns just said, oh, he's already in there. I don't know anything that's going on. He has signs everywhere. So a couple things. So Spencer Cox took $75,000 from the NEA, the National Education Association. It's a very liberal, left-minded indoctrination. Everything that you can imagine about teaching, you know, removing parental rights, unisex bathrooms, early sex ed for kids, abortion's okay, kinky sex, anything like that is supported by this organization. He took more money than Nancy Pelosi and I think it was Bernie combined, $75,000.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well.
I wonder why we are having mask mandates in our school. Is it tied to that? Because I do believe the masks are part of a conditioning. Furthermore, on August 6th, Gary Herbert admitted to joining with 7 other states and taking money from the Rockefeller Foundation.
So I'm not familiar with the Rockefeller Foundation.
So very rich and influential, part of the elitists. So when you have big money, and we have the New World Order that we're talking about, we have communism coming into our country, into our schools, we have this conditioning happen, we have everything is set up. Glenn Beck just did something, he just did a podcast called The Civil War. I don't know the date that was on it, but people need to watch that because he breaks down the whole pieces to achieving the New World Order and their leads.
Watch that. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
So everybody should watch that. But
you know what? Even if you don't buy into any New World Order, conspiracy, any of that, even if the goal is not conditioning, it is. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Demanding compliance, 100% compliance for people to wear masks when we're not in an emergency is conditioning. That's conditioning people to be compliant to their government and to not use their own brains. And that's one of the problems that I had is my daughter, you know, she's wearing hers to middle school and they had her wearing it out on the track, running in PE. And I called and I talked to the vice principal and she said, oh, that's not supposed to be happening. And I've seen it, that doesn't really happen. But sometimes the kids keep them on because they want to, which tells me, and another time we had the sister missionaries over for dinner and I don't like these mission rules, but they can come over and sit in the backyard to eat with us. Masks have to be worn by everyone, not just them, the whole time except when we're eating. So, you know, I want to feed the sisters, so I have them over. My daughter goes to eat, tries to eat with the mask on, completely forgetting that it's on, which to me tells us our brains go off when we start being that compliant. Like I'm constantly looking for an opportunity to take the stupid thing off. You know, I'm like, I've got this water I'm going to be sipping for the rest of the evening. So it's coming off now, right? But when you're conditioned, and at my daughter's age at 9, to keep the thing on, and my 12-year-old to keep it on when you're running around the track, that's encouraging you not to use your own brain and just to obey whatever government has told you to do. And that's a huge, huge problem.
Well, haven't we seen this before? We have seen this kind of conditioning. And, it's Ezra Taft Benson said, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact.
Right.
We have these things that keep happening. Satan wants to mimic God's plan. And his way of mimicking God's plan is through communism. Mm-hmm. And it appeals good, but really what we have God's plan of agency, and we have communism. And so it's, to me, we have the same kinds of things happening that were happening in Germany in pre-World War II with the conditioning and the Marxism of taking over the schools. And so
and tattle on your neighbor. And
now tattling on your neighbor. So I wanted to bring out, because there's a couple of issues for people, not only, okay, so I as a woman, I can choose where to shop. I can choose how to get around the mask. I've never worn one. I don't even have one. And I can choose to do that. But here's what's happening with businesses. So I had somebody give me a story. They have, I'm just going to leave everything confidential. They have a business and it suffered during the lockdown. And what government did in Utah, and I'm sure everywhere else, is they not only caused the lockdown and the financial loss, they caused it, but now they want to come in with money. Okay, so there's a bribery, so there's a blackmail and a bribery involved. They will help your business, and they will help give you some money to stay afloat, but you have to comply. You have to comply. Now in Cache Valley, which is northern Utah, almost Idaho, they have a Cache Valley Daily News. And it said on there, the awards for businesses who will comply to COVID measures. So what we have entering is a state of fascism. Fascism is communistic. Mm-hmm. It is the exact opposite of capitalism and a free market. Mm-hmm. I really believe if we took away these mandates and we allowed businesses to make their own decisions, then people could choose where they want to go.
I would go. I know, and that's the way it should work. I just got done reading Dinesh D'Souza's United States of Socialism, and I'll be doing a podcast on it. It's fabulous. Oh, cool. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. But he talks about how no one's making the moral case for the free market. And the free market is the most democratic thing you can find because you choose with your money. And so if, like, let's say that there was a Target and a Walmart, and one of them said, we're going to require masks, and the other one said, we're not going to require masks. Guess what? Mask people go to the store that requires it. Non-mask people go to the one that doesn't require it, and everybody's happy. But that's not what they want here. This government wants total compliance. And you're right that communism doesn't work or socialism doesn't work without total compliance. And so it feels a lot like this is just a way to get us there. Get them used to it. It's for everyone. It's the collective. It's good for everyone. And it's one thing for people to voluntarily say, yes, I want to, let's just say this is why I never give anyone a hard time that's wearing a mask. If someone honestly believes they're doing the right thing and they want to wear a mask to keep other people safe, then fine. And I don't have a problem with doing that. What I have a problem with is that you forcing me into doing it, especially when I see this is not an emergency. I might have bought into this 4 months ago. I'm not buying into it now. So that's the problem. That's where I draw the line, at you forcing me or other people into doing it. And some Karen at Target telling me what to do, and so I kept it down. I'm like, okay, am I waiting now? Is she going to go get a manager? Is a manager going to come and get me? And that didn't happen. But that's the problem. It's really all about, are we allowed to make decisions for ourselves? That's really what it boils down to.
Well, I think it's important to mention the hypocritical actions of our government officers. I'm not going to call them leaders. They're not leaders. I don't even give them the respect. There is a contractual agreement when you have a governor sign an oath to serve the people and protect the Constitution. And when he fails to do that, I'm not obligated. They're our servants. Okay, so I had people call me, and names are protected. They know Herbert's family personally. This is interesting, so listen up.
Yeah.
His family does not practice social distancing. They contracted COVID. It was kept under the rug, and it was quiet, and they did not quarantine. They do not wear masks. Okay. So September 4th, he had his annual gala. Now this one is to honor him and him leaving office because he's not going to continue in the term anymore. And so he had this at UVU. There was $2,500 a plate. And they usually allow 4,000 people to come in. He took the conservative approach, and he said, okay, well, we'll only have 1,000 people come in. How kind of him. Okay, let's not forget, there were several pictures I sent you on this gala. While masks were required to get in, they weren't constantly being worn. So there were several pictures that's going around the internet, especially in Utah, of what this was. He was on stage dancing. So we have people who can't go to church, who can't sing at church and things like that. We can have a concert and he can be up there singing. It is totally hypocritical.
And the thing is, if he was coming down on the side of freedom and saying, like Kristi Noem, who I have a girl crush on because she's the best governor. And
we all do.
Yes. And so if he used to come out and say that, I believe that we all have the freedom to make choices for ourselves, and my job is to protect that freedom. Go do your own thing. Then have 4,000 people at this fundraiser. Don't wear masks, and then great. That's great. We would all be applauding him for doing that. But because he's doing the opposite and telling you all one thing and doing the opposite himself, it just makes him a rank hypocrite. And the fact that they're doing that tells you they know there's no danger.
I know.
The actions of all those people tell you that they all know this is a joke. If people were really, really afraid of it, they really believed that this was so dangerous, they would, first of all, either not have the thing or mask up the entire time and sit social distance from each other. It's a joke.
Well, and I really want to talk about how hypocritical this is. So this meeting, this is kind of important. The money, he raises in the millions of dollars for these funds. He's curiously donating it to the public policy department at UVU. What does that mean? I would like to really understand and investigate that. Public policy, I'm sorry, I'm a little shy with that word right now because I don't really like the public policies that are happening.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, for people who are not awake, to be told that you can only have 20 people at a baptism, that he can have 1,000 as his gala, to only have 99 people in a church, and if you're 65 and older, you can't come. I'm pretty sure Herbert's older than 65. Okay.
How can we not have a First Amendment honored and do what we want at church, but he can have 1,000 people at a fundraiser?
Right. And and then we have people that are trapped in nursing homes dying not of COVID, but of geriatric suicide.
Yeah.
They
I
haven't
don't
seen their
blame
family
them.
in months.
Yeah.
And we have children who have lost their lives. We have an escalation of suicide and depression. Can we really just sit back and say as citizens anymore, oh, you know, we just need to keep complying? I'm sorry, I've lost respect for that. I
Yeah.
have. Because you cannot say we're going to save lives and then continue to destroy lives at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I understand that suicide thing. You know, I've been in this lockdown thing. I mean, we're not locked down anymore, but I've had a couple of meltdowns, and I have pretty good mental health. I've had a couple of meltdowns in relation to it, because we live in the country where we're used to being free. And so you can't just expect us to not be affected by all of a sudden we've lost a bunch of freedoms, and we're in the midst of all this fear that people are living in. I'm not afraid, but just being around a bunch of fearful people is really hard on me, you know?
yeah,
And so I really, really feel for people who already have a mental illness or mental health issues, to have all this piled on top of them, and then have tyrannical governors tell us we can't, you know, we can't operate like normal. We can't have a normal life like we used to. And now that we're getting into 6 months and I'm seeing people talk about masks going on continually, I'm about to have another meltdown, because you know, it's one thing to think, okay, haha, the election will come. That's when it's over. Ha ha ha. You know, that's been the joke. But to think that even the election's going to come and go, but it's still going to keep going because it's winter, that boils my blood.
well, and yeah, and to look at the school kids. So masks, Utah County and Provo City, so Provo City, Utah County, pretty much the same thing. They have mandated masks in their area. The police officers have said, we're not going to prosecute or fine, or, well, actually, I take that back. I think Provo did have a fine, but Utah County was like, a lot of the officers aren't going to enforce it. But we don't have a statewide mask mandate, and but we do for our children in the schools. So again, where Herbert can sit at a table and socialize and have a party, he's having our children isolate at school. Again, I've had stories of people who are their children, if they're lucky to get an exemption, their child is singled out. They can't use school equipment. They can't sit it by anybody. They have to wait 4 minutes until they can leave class. What is this doing to our kids? I pulled my kids out. I told you, I'm in a double master's semester. It's really busy. I'm taking classes double time. I still pulled my boys out for 2 reasons. Because I won't support what's wrong. I'm lucky in a position that I can do that. Not everybody is. I respect that. But also, I'm very concerned about the curriculum and what's happening there. And I just think, you know, to make kids sit 8 hours, and if it just falls under the nose, then the teachers are snapping their fingers. Some, not all. I know teachers who are against the mask, but they need their job. They need their health insurance.
Yeah.
And so it is that when we have government come in with federal money, nothing is free. To all of you who want socialism, if you're listening and you think socialism is good, it's not free. It comes at a price. And we're seeing that. We are seeing schools who have accepted federal money are now in the mousetrap of those conditions.
Yep. Well, a lot of us feel trapped. And how long are they going to have to wear masks at school? That's one of the biggest problems. Nobody's answering that. You know, we are under an emergency order, a mask order, until I think October 16th or something. And I keep thinking that when that lapses, that's the perfect time to just let kids go to school without masks. But it's not going to happen. I guarantee you the governor is going to do another 30-day emergency order. Emergency still 30 days. It's like the emergency is going to last eternally. But that's one of the biggest problems, is there's no end. We have not been given a date certain of this is when you can stop wearing masks. This is when your kids can stop wearing masks to school. We're not given that. And a big part of the problem is it's not just the governors, it's people like these BYU students who are begging for it. Like I go on to these town halls, virtual town halls, and we're all commenting, you know, on Facebook. And some of us are adamant about not wearing them, but just as many are on the other side saying, thank you for keeping us safe by requiring a mandate. Like, thank you. It's like, just say it. Thank you for forcing me to put something on my face. That's what they wanted. So until we win the hearts and minds of the other people and tell them, stop being afraid, there's nothing to be afraid of here, we're going to keep having this problem. This is the big problem. This is down to the nutshell, boiling it down to its smallest parts, is we have a big chunk, I want to say half and half, but there's a squishy middle too. So let's say 40-40. We have 40% of the country that wants to be free and is willing to accept the risk that freedom brings, because it does bring risk. And then we have the other 40% who are buying into the government's supposed to keep me safe, so I want them to keep me safe. And that means the governors and the presidents can tell us what to do, and we're going to follow along with it, and you people over there better follow along with it. And that's why this is all happening right at the same time as socialism is rearing its ugly head. And for someone who's lived through the Cold War, I never thought that I would be looking at people who are advocating for socialism and communism. But that's what we've got going on. And so unless we can win hearts and minds from these people, and yes, this is the right and this is the left, unless we can on this side win the hearts of these people, it's not going to change. And so I don't know,
Well, some actions that we can take. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. When you asked me to do this and you said, "Oh, Utah seems like has awesome things going on," I'm like, Utah has you fooled. And it's not to put down leaders of groups who have done awesome things. They have, but we're not seeing movement, and it's really stuck. And I had a conversation. So here's some ideas. I had a conversation with Defending Utah, a rep there, and he said that it's a conspiracy against the people. When you have Herbert constantly extending states of emergency illegally, even though the legislator voted against it, and he did it anyway, that should have been called for an impeachment. There's no separation of powers when that happens.
Yep.
So obviously we have people who aren't doing their job. So the next step for citizens, one idea could be that they write and call the House of Representatives. Call your House of Representatives to work towards an impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
So we need at least 50 of them to vote on it. Defending Utah has kind of a different approach, where here's an idea. And this is something I really want people to think about, is power is an illusion. Whenever you go to some kind of an event, you want to hear somebody speak, there's a sense of a power separation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody has authority over somebody else. We see that in the police officers, we see that everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have in life, everything we do is a contract. Everything is done in contract. You look at the Bible, everything is done in contract. You look at commerce, everything is done in contract. You go to the grocery store and you see apples for 99 cents a pound. That is a contract. They're offering you that apple for your pound. Mm-hmm. I mean, for your money.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to purchase it, then you get a receipt. That's proof of your contract, that you guys were into an agreement on that. If you are complying, you are agreeing to the terms of the mandate.
Mm-hmm.
So the key with Defending Utah, and the founding fathers were the inspiration for this. They gathered committees. Okay, so there's a couple of places, Defending Utah, I think it's probably defendingutah.com, people could research them. They teach you and they train you with how to form committees. Because if people are sheep, they're just sheep. They need a shepherd. And they either need it, and that's not to be insulting, Christ even called us sheep, right? We need a leader. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get into a community where you have people who are forming new committees, and they tell the people, we're the new constitutional committee, the council city members, this is what we're doing. People will eventually begin to believe that. So there's training for that. I wanted to say the American Committees Association at committees.us, they also train along the same line. Then there's a lawsuit going on. So you can get on wetheparents.com. So that lawsuit is a bunch of Utahns that have come together. The problem I have with the lawsuit, the concerns I have, is that if you're going to sue a governor in office, you're not suing the man himself. You've got to hold people liable as men and women, hold them liable themselves. Don't sue somebody in office. That office has a lot of money. They have a lot of protection. And so will they see movement now? I don't know. I think anything's worth an effort. The pros of these groups coming together is that it's creating activism, but the cons is that a lot of people are descending into subgroups. So there's a lot of subgroups and sub-actions that are happening. I'm doing the notice of liability. We're on the 3rd stage of perfecting our claim before we actually take legal action. It's not a lawsuit. It is stating, I am a natural woman before God. And that takes precedence over any law of the land. Laws of the land are only there to make sure and safeguard that we are not hurting somebody else. Everything's based on liability.
Okay, I'd like to do a whole episode on notice of liability. So
Yes.
keep your powder
Yes.
dry on that one, because I'm really interested and I'm very intrigued in what that's doing. So let's do a whole episode on that sometime.
Yeah. Okay.
I also want to put in a plug for, I like what you said about power, and we need to wrap it up here pretty soon. But I like what you said about power as a contract and an illusion. And these laws or executive orders or anything, they only work if we're willing to obey them. So I want to recommend a lot of civil disobedience, not only what you're comfortable with, but I'm going to start walking into a lot of places without a mask, just for kicks, just to see what happens. And because I want people to get used to the idea that some of us are going to be walking around without masks, because that's the only thing that's going to change this.
Yes.
As soon as someone tells me this thing is permanent, the mask gets burned, because I am not signing up. I'm not agreeing to the endless use of a mask. I'm just not.
I agree.
And so people need to start being okay. And I think you have more of that in Utah because you don't have a statewide mandate like we do here. There's no county. We don't have any counties that are allowed to not do, have mandates here. We're stuck. The whole state is stuck. So we just have to go, without any kind of legal protection if we're walking around without a mask. Just have to be willing to see what happens. I'll carry my mask with me if I feel like, okay, I've made my point and I don't want to get arrested. I might put it on. But I think we need to start pushing back everywhere. If enough of us refuse to mask up, they can't stop us. Eventually we'll turn the tide and people will realize, okay, that we're not getting enough compliance. We're going to stop the mask. That's the only thing really that's going to stop.
And here's the rough thing. I think we have the independent people who are comfortable doing that to a degree, but then we have the marketplace, which is a whole different animal to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I know Utah Business Revival with Eric Mutzos, he's been really big on that and helping businesses get back on their feet and representing them. Even though businesses are open, it's only 40–50% capacity. So the social distancing is still hurting businesses. They can't function optimally. Mm-hmm. And so again, it's going to take, this is what it's going to take. And it starts with every one of us to make that personal decision to stand up for what's right and not comply to what we feel is wrong. Yeah. But secondly, we need leaders in positions to have the courage to do the same thing.
Yes.
We need our leadership to do the same thing. And it might be that crazy case. We might have more cases come out where we have, like that woman who refused to close her shop. And so she got arrested and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was in Texas. Stupid stories like that just should never, she's a hero, but it's over a stupid mask. It's over stupid social distancing. Mm-hmm. And I think if leaders can stand up and do the right thing, that's where the heroes are born. Mm-hmm. That's where change happens. It doesn't happen because you're a good citizen and you comply. It never did. Nope. It never did.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. I want to add one more little ray of hope in here. My friend DK and I did an episode a while back, not that long ago, on how the Supreme Court does not have our back on any of this. Well, the notorious RBG is now no longer on the court, and I would say it's almost a done deal that we are going to get a conservative on the court, because we have Trump that's going to nominate one, and we control the Senate. Even if he doesn't get reelected, we still control the Senate. And I'm posting that episode before this one, so hopefully people will listen to that. But so there's also that hope that if some of us do stand up, end up getting arrested, yada, yada, it will make its way to the Supreme Court eventually, and we will have the numbers now. So now I could go back and say, I think the Supreme Court will have our back on some of this. So that's another ray of hope. So yes. Thank you for sharing. I will tag you when I post this, so if people have questions for you, if they can find you on Facebook. Is there someplace they can email you if they want to get more information or connect with you somehow?
Do you want me to give my personal email?
Or do you want, I could just have them contact me and I can contact you,
or just even message on Facebook.
Okay, so they can
message
find
on
you
Facebook, or yeah.
Elena Erickson.
Yeah, it's Elena.
Elena, sorry, you know, I've been mispronouncing it and I didn't know it. Dang it!
That's okay, I get it all the time.
I know, but I want to get it right. Elena, thank you.
No problem.
All right, so they can find you on Facebook, Elena, Alena, Erickson, Ericksen, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you for showing up. I'm sure I'm going to have you on again because I do want to talk about the notice of liability. I just need to do some research on it and wrap my head around it and really know what we're talking about before we get on. But this has been very helpful, if for no other reason that we can hash through some of these issues and have some ideas of what we can do. So I ask everyone that's listening to search your own conscience, pray about it, meditate on it, and figure out what it is you can do. Join a group, look into these committees. I think that's a good idea as well. Organization's really good. Talking about it with friends, being more open with it about it on Facebook, because people feel more emboldened to do things when they see other people doing those things. Like, I'm much more likely to walk into a store without a mask if I'm with someone else who's also without a mask. So join together, you know, let's do this together.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you. And thank you for listening. You can find this episode on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, AnnetteTalks.com, YouTube.com/Annette Talks. Thank you for listening to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, where freedom lovers gather.